check out the assist.
And maybe there's such a thing as playoff Miritich? We just didn't know it?
Yeah.
He should have got rid of the beard a long time ago.
Oh, he does look totally different.
He looks totally, and he plays totally different than in Chicago. I like him added to this team with the brow. Rondo, man, it's exciting to see them all come together.
Good-looking guy without the beard. On to Game 3 between the Sixers and Heat. Ben Simmons really good at passing, but check out the handles right here.
Not one, not two, but three Miami Heat take that. Justice Winslow, nope. Olynyk, you stood no chance. Whiteside, please.
Ben Simmons, as we've gotten down to the last month of the season, their coach has done a tremendous job of putting him really at the point, letting him handle the ball out front, and you can see the comparisons to LeBron because the way he's able to pick and roll, split the double team, and finish at the cup.
And on that play, similar to when LeBron went behind the back between Tristan Thompson's legs, splitting the double team.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson, a whole bunch of stuff ain't gone right since then.
This was San Antonio's first possession last night. Rudy Gay all over JaVale McGee.
He's not real happy right now.
No.
He's not Rudy Gay.
No. One of the few highlights for the Spurs. Warriors are up 3-0 in this series.
Man,
Nick, what I text you last night and tell you about basketball?
it's hard to play when you're sad.
It's hard to play, man. It's a game that I knew that they would come out with a lot of emotion, but it's hard to maintain.
It's hard to maintain it because I wanted to bet the Spurs last night plus the 4.
I told him no.
I bet it anyway.
Day 5 of continuing Des Bryant coverage. Where will he go? Is he still good? Will he ever get married? Earlier in the week, Des mentioned that he'd love to stay in the NFC East and that the Giants would be a pretty good fit for him. Then yesterday, the Giants cut wide receiver Bradon Marshall. When Giants GM Dave Gettleman was asked about if he would sign Des, he said, quote, "I'm interested in everybody." Way to narrow it down, Dave. Right after the Bradon Marshall cut was announced, this was released. Des posting this video on the gram of he and Odell working out together. Rope day. CC, start with you. Do you think the Giants should sign Des? Would Des be a good fit on this New York Giants team, and why?
First, if Dez really looks at his career, and I believe this offseason, it can be a turning point for Dez. Number one thing, even before Dallas released him, he had looked at hiring a wide receiver coach to work on some things that could make him better as a wide receiver. Now, Odell Beckham, I'm tell you, like him, dislike him, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. Now, he knows how to go about being a great wide receiver. His work ethic. One of his biggest problems with the Giants is when he's there at the Giants, they won't let him participate in a lot of the stuff on the field, the one-on-one with the defensive backs, because they don't want him to get hurt, and he really wants to be out there. That was kind of one of the things he complained about last year, why he wanted to work out on his own. So he can be a tremendous influence on Dez. I'm not saying Dez is not a hard worker, but Odell Beckham is a smart wide receiver. He knows the route tree. He concentrates on the fundamentals. He works on the fundamentals. So even though their ages are totally different, Dev's career is on the way down, OBJ is still ascending, like he can be a tremendous help. Not like Randy Moss and myself, but very, very similar. Because Randy Moss, he provided, because he was so athletic and so gifted, he provided motivation for me every day. Because if I wasn't at my absolute best, then there was someone on our team that was actually better than me. So every day I had to show up and be focused, and the commitment that we made to each other that we would challenge each other. So I believe a lot of times in a situation like this, if your ego is in check, which I believe Dez going through this whole offseason, it will be, that yes, for the right price, he would be a good fit for the Giants.
And I appreciate the you and Randy comparison also in this regard. One of the other reasons that was a great fit, not just because one of only 3 wide receiver duos ever to end up both being Hall of Famers, but because stylistically you guys were different types of players.
Yes.
Especially very early in Randy's career. Very early in Randy's career, he was running, I mean, one of the reasons I think you didn't have as much of a problem as other people did when he said, like, he would take plays off, is Randy's running, what, 40, 60-yard sprints a game?
Yes.
And sometimes he's got to take a break. Like, and that wasn't exactly at that point in your career what they were asking you to do, run a bunch of 9 reps.
Yeah, at no point.
At no point in your career. All right, certainly not then, and maybe at no point. And so Dez and Odell are different stylistically. There's not a lot of redundant skill sets there. And from a football version, I like it a lot. It's the same reason from a football version I liked the idea of pairing Bradon Marshall up with Odell.
Yes.
Because Dez, even at this point in his career, Dez is a better player than Bradon Marshall is at this point in Brandon's career. Brandon's older than Dez. Like, you want to go peak versus peak, it's a different discussion. But you would theoretically be getting a better version of what you had hoped to get with Brandon last year. So from a football perspective, I get it. The only reason you wouldn't have serious interest, the player wants to be there, he knows the division, for all those reasons it makes sense, is the personality part of it. And this is where I wonder if Dez is in store for a bit of a reality check. Because if Dez is telling the truth where he's not going to ask for $12, $14 million a year, if Dez is really willing to take less money, to be on a potential winner, to stay in the division, to be able to play the Cowboys twice, and he sees they cut Bradon Marshall, there's a spot for me, and the Giants still don't want him, then all of a sudden Dez is going to have to ask himself, well, wait, are Garrett's guys infiltrating the entire league? Or has some of this been more about Dez Bryant than about what other people just say about Dez Bryant?
When you talk about your relationship with Randy Moss and what you needed to bring to the table every day to be able to sustain a great working relationship on the field and a working relationship off the field, and when you say things like, I needed to bring my best and be my best every day because there was someone right there, knowing what we've seen about Dez Bryant, unless he's really changed in a dramatic way in the last couple weeks, unless this cut from the Dallas Cowboys has really resonated with him to the point where he wants to make a change, it doesn't seem like with his personality and Odell's personality, that's the relationship that they're going to have, that he's going to walk in and say, well, I've got to be 100% and I've got to make sure my off-the-field work is stellar and I have to make sure that my relationship with Odell, just knowing what you know about Dez Bryant, do you see that in him, that he could be able to sort of grow into that person if he wants to fit onto this role on the team?
I believe all people can change. And most of the time, that change doesn't occur until you're forced. And this will be forced. And I believe Dez's attitude is in the right place. Also, he has a lot of respect for OBJ. He knows OBJ is better than him. When you start the day with that...
Are you sure he knows that?
He knows that. He knows that. Now, wide receivers, we all have a certain amount of crazy. So we also have a certain amount of acceptance in other wide receivers. At this point in Dez Bryant's career, you have to think about this sometime. Forget what OBJ is thinking. What do you think Washington is thinking? What do you think Howie Roseman, Philadelphia, is thinking? And the Dallas Cowboys. Would any of these teams be like, man, put Dez on the Giants. Put him with OBJ. No problem. We like to face that twice a year. And the answer would be no. Dallas does not want him with the Giants. Philadelphia definitely don't want to face Dez twice a year with OBJ and Eli. No, he doesn't want that, and Washington wouldn't want that. So I believe it can work out, even though they have some similarities in personality. But OBJ knows he is the guy. The offense will dictate. When you see the game plan on a weekly basis, you will know. OBJ also works so hard in practice that it's not like he's only a gamer. I believe he would be a tremendous influence on Dez at this point in Dez's career.
And I think you can be somewhat self-deluded as a pro athlete and still recognize the best in the field is better than me. There are a lot of guys that are, in an NBA example, like, does Damian Lillard think, you know what? Or C.J. McCollum, better example. Does he think deep down, you know what, I'm as good as Russell Westbrook? He might. But he doesn't think he's better than LeBron. Or doesn't think he's better than Kevin Durant, right? So Dez might still think, I'm still a top 10 receiver in this league. But doesn't think I'm top 2. And the point that you made at the beginning, that OBJ is better than him, this is the other reason that matters. We've never seen Dez Bryant on a team with a receiver better than him. We don't know how that would motivate him. We don't know how he would respond to the idea of, oh, I got to do work to stay with this guy. He's always, even when he was deteriorating, still better than Bryce Butler, still better than Terrence Williams, still better than Cole Beasley. So that could be good for him as well.
All right, you mentioned Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. We're going to talk about that. Coming up, for the Pelicans challenge the Warriors in round 2. Why are we talking about that? Because the Blazers don't seem to be playing playoff basketball. That's next on First Things First.